Welcome to the Wired for Success podcast, your show for ambitious, mission-driven entrepreneurs who want to build million-dollar businesses without sacrificing their health, relationships, or happiness, who understand that in order to build their empire, they need a solid foundation, and that the more they are thriving, the more their business is thriving too. This show brings you the very best from science, self-development, and entrepreneurship to set you up for sustainable success. Hi, I'm Claudia Garbutt, the scientist turned mindset and high-performance coach for entrepreneurs, and I help you get wired for success. Hey everyone, and welcome back to a brand new episode of the Wired for Success podcast, where we talk about all things science, self-development, and entrepreneurship that help you get to that next level of success in your life and business. My guest today is José Pedro Castro, an accomplished researcher in the field of aging and age-related inflammation. José completed his PhD in Biomedicine in 2015 at the University of Porto. He then moved to the German Institute of Human Nutrition and joined the Grune Lab in Berlin to study how age-related redox and metabolism changes impact the adipose tissue and skeletal muscle. After completing his project, he was awarded the prestigious DFG Max-Kade Fellowship and moved to Harvard Medical School in Boston. There, he explored the genetics of aging, age-related diseases, and lifespan control from a systems biology perspective. This sounds super fascinating, and I can't wait to hear more about it. Welcome, José, and thank you so much for being on my show today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure. Been following your podcast for quite some time, and it's actually a pleasure to be here and share some ideas with you. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much. José, why have you become a scientist? I'm so curious.
Wow, that goes way back. So when I was a kid, so it's not one of those inspirational stories, but it's actually true. When I was like around 7 or 8, I was a very curious kid, like most of us are. And I was kind of experimenting a lot of stuff back home, like why does the bread get that very brownish thing when it's old? So we know now it's mold, right? But I was like, testing all these conditions and putting the bread with sugar and water and put it in the sun. And so I got all these very different outcomes from those experiments. I didn't know that they were experiments, right? So I was kind of documenting them, and I was telling my parents. My parents were okay, don't bother me. But this was kind of the spark that led me to science. And so from a young age, I was actually keen to understand how things worked, around me. And I got more and more interested in this. So I think it came very natural. So then I joined biology, microbiology. And so it went really natural. It was nothing I didn't have to think much, right? So it was something very natural. And now I'm getting old and I'm still doing science. So I guess I took the right path.
It's kind of in your DNA.
It's kind of in my DNA. Yeah. We don't know how the genes work, but it's definitely in my DNA. That's for sure.
And why did you choose to focus on researching aging specifically?
Yeah. So that's when we have to go back after I did my major in microbiology, and I knew I wanted to do science, and then I got invited to participate. I didn't know much about aging other than what we all know, right? But so it was like a project working with centenarians, right? People that age in very good health. And so the boss that contacted me, the professor, he was kind of interested in understanding what is different in the proteins from the centenarians. How are they resistant to damage? So it kind of sparked my curiosity. I tag along, and we did some interesting findings, and then I couldn't look back. So aging it's super fascinating, not only because it really affects us, right? But as soon as you start working on aging, you start seeing how complex the puzzle is and how different things connect that you had no clue, right? Let's say you start working with adipose tissue, and all of a sudden you're connecting with skeletal muscle tissue. So everything seems to be very, very connected, and it's very complex because within a tissue, different cells age at different pace. So how is this even possible, right? How can we track and how can we understand this different behavior within a simple tissue, right? And so, you know, I'm really passionate about aging and longevity research. And as you can see, probably, right? So I never look back. I never look back. So it's aging, and I'm studying how we age, how different people age, and trying to find out some interventions that can slow down aging and extend lifespan and health span. But maybe we're going to get to that in a bit more detail. So yeah, so this is long. It's a very long answer, I know. Sorry for that, but it's very exciting. So it started just with a simple master, degree, and then it just sparked my curiosity, and I could never stop.
Now, before we dig deeper into that, maybe we should just take a step back and start with the basics. So what is aging?
Okay, so you probably started with the most difficult question.
I did.
Really.
On purpose.
On purpose. So that's so it's and why I say this is that there's not a consensus about the definition of aging. Some people think about it's damage accumulation. Some people think it's just damage accumulations over a long period of time. Some other people think it's mortality risk that increases. Some people think of aging as a disease, right? That's a big debate. Is it aging or disease or not? And so we don't have a clear definition about aging. We just, my point of view is just a accumulation of damage, but also adaptive responses, right? As we age, not everything goes bad. So some things we have to activate somehow to level this damage that accumulates. But I mean, I don't want to go into deeper details, but so there's very different, definitions of aging. And I can't give you a clear answer, right? My answer is damage accumulation, but it's also during, and this is a little bit more complex, but during development, we have like a program, and this program might be losing information as we age, and so tissues lose somehow, identity, and you might have, for example, liver start behaving like a skin, or kidney start behaving like something else. So there's a little bit of loss of synchronization between tissues, a loss of identity. So everything contributes to this functional decline that we observe over time that might accelerate the susceptibility to disease. So so this is maybe a good definition of aging for your audience. So it's functional decline over time that may come from this development loss, program loss, and damage accumulation as well. So right. I would say that. Yeah.
What about the shortening of the telomeres that we hear about?
Oh, so the shortening of telomeres, it's one of those things that it's so hyped that then everybody talks about telomeres as the cause of aging. But we now know that telomeres do not explain aging. So this is kind of a misconception that was, became so mainstream that now you ask someone and everybody tells you it's telomeres or oxidative stress. But we now know, for example, I'm going to give you just an example. For example, mice, the laboratory mice, they live maximum 3 years, right? Will live 70, 80 years, mostly regardless of the diets we have. But these mice have really long telomeres, right? So if telomeres was like the main driving force of the aging process, this would mean that we would probably live less than mice, right? But that's not the case. So it's there's so many other aspects of aging that the telomeres do not explain. They might be helpful explaining, for example, cancer in some situations, but aging is far more complex than just the telomeres. And I'm not saying here that telomeres won't play a role in some particular aspect of aging, but as an overall view, I don't think telomeres, and you see data coming out frequently saying, for example, there's no correlation with mortality and telomeres, or so I don't think telomeres are robust enough to explain the process of aging. But thanks for bringing that up. Actually, super. Yeah.
And thank you so much for clarifying. That's very, very good to know.
Yeah.
And you mentioned before that different tissues age at different rates. I think I remember hearing that people, how do I explain that? So that different people have age differently. So some people, like, the brain ages first, and for other people it's other organs that age first. Is that correct, or is that another misconception?
No, you're absolutely right. That's a very, very good point that we didn't know, I don't know, like 10 years ago. And we start finding these things up when the aging clocks were kind of discovered or invented. And these aging clocks, what they do, they're like fancy algorithms that can track your biological age, just to put it simple. And why is this important? Because let's imagine that we both are 40 years old. Let's say, I'm probably you're younger than me, but let's say we are both 40 years old, and if we compare each other, I'm looking really bad. So our chronological age is the same, but somehow our biological stuff that goes on is very different. So it means that, for example, my tissues might be well worse than your tissues. So this aging clocks, and depending how they are built, there are molecular features that they help them build, but they track these changes over time, right? So this means, for example, that my liver compares to yours might have an accelerated biological age, right? And so this is just between individuals. Overall, this is true what you said. So different tissues age at different rates. But if you think about just one individual, for example, I might be an immunoager, meaning that my immune system might be, comparing to my cardiovascular system, might be aging way faster. So this is really important, that's to track this down, right? Because if we know, like, the starter of the aging tissues trajectories, we could somehow intervene and stop the immune, in my case, the immune aging that would lead somehow to, let's say, cardiovascular aging, right? So if we know these trajectories within individuals, it's kind of a personalized medicine thingy, right? So if we know these trajectories within individuals, we can intervene and hopefully, compress morbidities and chronic diseases so that people extend their health span, most importantly, and ultimately their lifespan. So to come back and answer your question, you're absolutely right. So different tissues, and we don't know why this is, but different tissues actually age at different pace. And we are now the community are trying to identify, patterns, common trajectories within individuals and within tissues that allow us to track all this aging tissue trajectories. So it's a really hot thing right now in aging. And with the help of AI, we're actually getting there. So I think it's a matter of years until we get very defined trajectories that we may intervene with supplements, for example, or drugs, and allow people to live better with quality of life. Yeah.
Wow, super fascinating. Now, another basic. So what is age-related inflammation, and how does it contribute to the aging process?
Right. Yeah, that's a good question. Again, we don't know how that is. So you're bringing all the hard questions, but that's good. And so, this idea that inflammation, it's one of those things that it's well established in the field that as we age, there's a sterile inflammation. So it means that it's not coming from an infection, but it's so our immune system or our tissues, they go crazy and they start to become inflammatory, right? And so as this inflammation, it's a low-grade inflammation, but if you think about over a period, it doesn't do anything. It's just, a short period inflammation. But if you think about a long period of accumulation of inflammation within tissues, this will set damage. This will start leading to tissue architecture changes and infiltration by immune cells in the tissues, and this will disrupt the tissue function. So we know that this inflammation, it's true, it increases, but we don't know where it starts. We don't know which tissue, if there's a particular tissue that is more susceptible to inflammation, how affect other tissues. We don't know, for example, how during development this inflammation sets trajectories that will affect life. Let's say, for example, you're having a baby and the baby has a lot of inflammation. Will this decrease its lifespan? Will this affect health of the baby? So these are things I'm interested in, and we don't know much about yet. So this inflammaging, which is the term coined by Claudio Franceschi, is it's incomplete. It's a very powerful concept. So inflammation increasing, damaging tissues over time, but we don't know the origin. We don't know which people actually have this inflammaging and how does this drive poor health outcomes. So I'm trying to understand a little bit about these trajectories of inflammation as we age. I hope it was, simple enough.
Yes. Yeah. And I mean, most people believe that inflammation is always bad, but that's not really the case, right? For instance, in exercise adaptations or when we're fighting off diseases, you actually want certain levels of inflammation. Can you talk about this aspect and how we should think about inflammation in general?
Right. That's a really nice remark you just made. That, and let me just go a little bit back when you talked about what is aging. And one of the things we now know actually is, and I mentioned this just briefly, is that as we age, not everything is bad. So there's some stuff that is actually adaptive, meaning that it helps us to probably fight the damage that accumulates over time. And inflammation is pretty much the same in this way, because, as you said, if we have an infection, we still want to have inflammation, right? To fight off the infection, we need to somehow get out of our comfort zone called homeostasis. So we can actually fight infection. We need to raise our temperature, and we need to increase blood flow so that immune cells infiltrate tissues and fight. So these are all good things, right? So somehow we need to understand how can we push up the good inflammation and decrease the bad inflammation as we age. So you're absolutely right. And these distinctions need to be made. I mean, so perhaps 10 years ago, we didn't think about these differences between good stuff and bad stuff as we age. Everybody just assumed that if a gene goes down, we need to bring it back. Or if a gene goes up, we need to bring it down. But it might be that this gene is helping us adapting, and inflammation is just the same thing. We need to understand what the good inflammation is, so that we kind of improve this good inflammation, but we decrease the bad inflammation. So this is in progress as well. So trying to track down, for example, development stages might be helpful to understand inflammation, the good inflammation, right? Because maybe this inflammation helps to define tissue structure, right? But later on, it might be detrimental. And this is what we call antagonistic pleiotropy, meaning that sometimes some processes are good when we are young, but if we keep them activated, they might be detrimental as we age, right? So we're trying to understand precisely what you are, bad things from good things, so that we can manipulate all these processes in a convenient way.
It's all so complicated, right?
Yeah. Why is that, right?
Why is it so complicated?
Why couldn't it be simple, right? But I think it's exciting, right? The puzzle, and then you have to talk to people, and you have to brainstorm, and you have to think, and you have to write, and you have to go to conferences, and you hear all different ideas and crazy ideas. So in the end, I think it's a very rewarding experience, right? Science, because if we know the answer, it wouldn't be fun, right? So
It wouldn't be fun. Yeah.
we wouldn't be fun, right? So that's it. Yeah.
Now, you already mentioned those aging clocks that are popping up everywhere. What do you think about them, and how maybe can you explain how they work and how people can estimate their biological age based on some blood markers and some algorithms? How does it work?
Yeah. So right now, as you said, it just boomed. We have aging clocks being built almost every day. Comes a new publication with a new aging clock. But basically, they are built with machine learning algorithms, and they're based on molecular features. So let me give you an example. For example, DNA methylation, which is I need to go simple, I know, but it's a chemical mark in the DNA, and we kind of tracked in a big cohort of individuals. We try to track how this methylation goes in the DNA as we age. So it gets something kind of linear, right? In a overall population, in a big population, and then you can track. You use this data to track individuals, meaning, let's say you have, for example, a plot where you have chronological age and epigenetic age, and you see if you are above or below the curve. So if you're above, it means you have accelerated biological age. So right, so it has to be then personalized. And then the clocks you use, it depends on the tissue. For example, with mice, of course, we can use liver and kidneys, but in humans, it's convenient to use blood, right? Because we cannot be biopsying people all the time. So so people are kind of using blood to track their biological age. But then again, it can be this DNA methylation, but it can also look at genes, at proteins. So it depends on your. They're obviously costly at this point, but we hope that the cost will go down in the upcoming years. And actually, there's already some startups using these clocks to test biological age for people and kind of predict their disease probability. Well, I won't mention any company, of course, but you can Google and you can look. So there's all these different flavors of aging clocks now that can be tested. But I think they're very, very useful because they don't fully explain aging or anything like that, but they're a very important tool because they have lower error than if you just go for a gene or a protein, because you're looking at a overall thing. Right, so many genes or many methylation sites, and they actually have quite success in predicting, let's say in 5 years, the disease susceptibility in some cases. So I think they're revolutionizing clinics, and they're useful because in the future you go to a doctor and you measure your biological age, and then he says, okay, you have your biological age accelerated, so let's try this exercise regimen. You're going to do, cardio, and you come back in 3 months and we'll evaluate if the thing I prescribed is actually having an effect in this biological age, right? So then you go back, and if the biological age is going down below your chronological age, or at least the control age when you started the treatment, you say, okay, let's continue this intervention, right? But on the other hand, if you go back and biological age is actually getting worse, you say, hey, hold on, this is not working. So we need to change our regimen, right? So that we get biological age lower than expected. And we now know that this is possible because recent studies show that biological age is actually a very flexible thing. For example, after COVID, this is a work of a colleague of mine, Jesse Pognick. It shows, for example, that after COVID, there's an increase in biological age, but after you kind of solve the infection, the biological age goes down again. So it's a very flexible thing, this biological age, although we still don't know exactly what this is, but it's flexible. So it means you can assess this biological age very regularly, after talking to your doctor, and see if your supplements or your drugs that he prescribed are actually working towards that goal of lowering biological age. So
that's amazing. And I love that personalized approach where you can really see what treatment is doing, to you, to yourself, not just to the standard or a medium in a study or something. And you see the effect on your own body. Now, what are some good biomarkers to determine aging, and how can we positively influence those markers? Do you have any examples that you can give?
Yeah. So there's quite some examples. Exercise, and I know you're very interested in exercise. Mm-hmm. Exercise seems to be a very good intervention to affect the aging process. So we need more details to know exactly the type of exercise, right? If it's more cardio or strength. This is not my specialty in a way, but I know that exercise has a very positive effect on aging, in the aging process. But for example, calorie restriction. So if you reduce your calorie intake of about 40%, you have all these benefits. In mice, this has been very tested, extensively, and there seems to be a positive side. If you reduce your calorie intake, cells and tissue somehow they get stress, but in a good way. So they activate all these sorts of mechanisms to clean the bad things in your tissues, and this helps to reset. Reset is kind of a tricky word, but it kind of helps to slow down the aging process, and we know that, right? Then there's this rapamycin drug. Mm-hmm. Which is super famous. I think it's, and just a disclaimer, I don't have any company, I don't sell rapamycin, but it's very impressive. It's super robust, regardless if you test in flies and worms and mice, even in humans in very specific clinical endpoints. It really seems to, ameliorate damage, and it seems to restore function in humans, in tissues, in immune cells, cardiovascular. So people are trying to kind of get the right amount of rapamycin, and if it's continuously or in pulses. But rapamycin is super promising, and all the derivatives of rapamycin, called the rapalogs of second generation. And so why is this exciting? Because it hits a protein that is very evolutionary conserved across species. So this means that there's something fundamental about aging that this rapamycin affects, and it slows down all these aspects of aging. And I think what brought rapamycin to the spotlight was this amazing study in 2009, which was done in old mice. So just think about getting a mice very old, and you treat them with a drug, and you see if this extends their lifespan. So it's very unlikely that you get a system already full of damage, right? Because they were tested, and it's the equivalent of people from 60 and 70 years old, more or less. Mm. So you start an intervention at this age, and what they saw was remarkable. So it was published in Nature, of course, the work of Richard Miller, and they were able to see lifespan extension, right? So it's amazing. Wow. So you start an intervention very late in life. They're so old, the mice, and you still get a very large benefit in medium lifespan and a maximum lifespan. So this gives us hope, right? So it means that there are still ways of somehow interfering with the aging process late in life. It's very flexible. It's a malleable process that it's still enough to somehow activate resilient pathways or reduce damage and make the mice live longer. And so this was kind of a landmark study. So people have now trying to develop interventions to test later in life, but also early in life. We also did a study just giving mice 45 days of rapamycin, just the first 45 days of life, and then you leave them be. And it actually extended lifespan of male mice. In female mice, it didn't work, but all the health span metrics were kind of improved. You see, so there's something fundamental about rapamycin that affects the system and make not just mice, but in humans, as I said, makes the system better and more resilient. And there's more, but I think we covered it enough. There's just one more. There's one new thing called partial reprogramming, but this is a genetic manipulation that it's supposed to reverse the aging process, not slow down, and this is a fine distinction, but reverse the aging process. But here the data is still missing to give you a full recommendation, I would say, of partial reprogramming. There's a lot of startups actually using this intervention to see if we can reverse aging, but I think we're a bit far from achieving that yet. So the best things I would say are to slow down the aging process, such as rapamycin or calorie restriction or even exercise.
So has the rapamycin study been replicated in humans yet, or are we still just looking at mice?
Yeah, so rapamycin, as I said, if you want to test lifespan, you cannot do it in humans, right? That would be a very long study if you had to wait 70 years or 80 years, right? It cannot be done. So people are trying to apply the clocks to see if rapamycin works, or measure function in tissues. Let's see if cardiovascular function gets better or the immune function gets better. So there's a lot of coming out studies. For example, the study of Joan Manick, where they gave old people rapamycin, and they saw if the immune system would respond better to a flu vaccine. And so it seems that older people under rapamycin, they have a stronger immune response if they have rapamycin. So you see, as I said, you cannot do lifespan, but you can do specific tissue function evaluations to see if rapamycin is getting better, is improving tissue function. And there's not many studies showing side effects of rapamycin. There's also some studies showing no benefit, but there's also a lot of studies showing improvements in this tissue function. And curiously, the lower of the drug you give, the most benefit you get. You get. Yeah. So now I think people are focusing in lower concentrations, not giving it continuously. They're giving it in pulses, and they're giving good results. But every day comes out some nice data. So, but it's promising in humans as well.
Super interesting.
Yeah, cool.
Other than CRP, for instance, what are some specific biomarkers that we could monitor to track chronic inflammation?
Yeah, so that's a good question again. You're on fire. So the thing is, cytokines such as CRP or IL-6. So these are common inflammatory cytokines, just for people to know. But it turns out for the inflammaging or the aging process inflammation, they might not be good enough. And what I mean by this is cytokines, they work as a team. So it means, for example, the famous IL-10. IL-10 alone can be anti-inflammatory, but if it works together with other cytokines, it may become pro-inflammatory. So CRP is one of those cases that it might not very well predict this inflammaging, but it's more useful for a bacterial infection. But the inflammaging thing, it's not good enough. And so if you want to track age-related inflammation, you need to look to a systems, from a systems biology approach, meaning that you have to somehow look at many of the cytokines or genes you can to get a better and a more real account for age-related inflammation. So unfortunately, I can't give you one great biomarker for inflammaging, but I can tell you that we are working now on a signature, meaning that a combination of genes that seem to be good enough to predict some kinds of chronic diseases, such as belonging to the axis of heart, lung, kidney, and brain cancers. So we're kind of disclosing, we're finding out this signature of genes. So there's, I cannot, again, disclose what the genes are, but these are genes that behave similarly as we age. And if we take these genes and you evaluate aging tissues and you do some disease prediction with computational analysis, you get this axis of lung, heart, and kidney that are predicted. So of course, there are other types of inflammation, but we are finding this specific trajectory that goes from aging to chronic diseases related to these tissues. So this is the best I can tell you right now. But people, I guess, are trying to stratify better markers or a combination of markers for other types of diseases. So hopefully, if we talk again in the future, I can. And we publish this, I can tell you what the signature is and how well it predicts diseases. But it's still in work in progress.
We're looking forward to the results.
Yeah.
Since the trend is going more and more toward prevention rather than treatment, are there any other thresholds that you can share of maybe less known biomarkers that point to emerging problems so that we can catch those problems early on, preferably before we develop any serious symptoms?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So currently, I don't think there's and this comes to the what I was describing earlier. So we still don't know exactly when it starts, this inflammation, and which tissues. So I can't tell you which ones we should look at, because this is still unknown, right? People, there was this paradigm shift in the aging field. People used to study old people versus young people. But if aging starts very early, and spoiler alert, it may start in the womb during development.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it's that early. So we need to track this inflammation as earlier as possible. And this is kind of it's still very new field of aging and inflammation. So I can't tell you which markers you should look at. But of course, I can tell you all what your grandmother would tell you. So eat well, do your exercise, and all this, these things that probably will avoid that, right? But as a marker, and to be more science-based, I don't think we have yet good evidence to start looking at this inflammation. We are actually working with my former lab in Harvard. We're trying to get this inflammation clock. So it's an aging clock based on inflammation, so that we can try to understand and combine this biological age and inflammation to see which tissues might start this inflammation. So again, this is in progress, but hopefully we will know which genes and which tissues contribute to this, rise of inflammation very, very early. So we're looking at development stages. We're looking at very early in life and trying to find peaks of biological age and inflammation so that we can predict. For example, some people might have a peak in the liver. Those people have to be intervened, let's say, early in life for the liver, right? And then this would postpone all the bad inflammation. The way I see it, of course, this might be wrong. But other people might have very early cardiovascular inflammation. So if we detect an biological age and inflammation peak very early in these people, let's somehow treat these people with some drug that should be enough to reduce this inflammation. But we approach it from a systems biology perspective. So it's every cytokine, every protein, like you mentioned, CRP, has its own weight, but we need to weight them together, not just one, right? So that we get more power for our predictions. So this is again ongoing work, but it's exciting. Yeah, it's exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Doing so many interesting things.
Yes, hopefully, yeah, hopefully.
Are there any new insights into the link between autoimmune diseases and chronic inflammation?
Good question. So I can tell you much. So there seems to, if you look at tissues as we age, you get some enrichment in autoimmune pathways. I don't know exactly the connection there, but of autoimmunity and aging, but it seems to be clear that this pathways of autoimmunity seems to increase as we age. For example, this signature I was telling you about just a few minutes ago, that I'm very excited. Some of this, a part of this signature is actually enriched for autoimmunity, right? So we can predict, for example, lupus, systemic lupus, which has not been recognized as an aging disease, but maybe it has a accelerated aging phenotype that we don't know. So we're kind of trying to understand this autoimmune components of aging and inflammation. But I can tell you much right now about that. But I think there's something about autoimmunity and aging, actually. It might be for some specific chronic disease trajectories. Maybe, for example, and I'm just throwing diseases here randomly, but let's say, for example, Alzheimer doesn't have any autoimmunity. So this trajectory, this signature wouldn't predict Alzheimer. But for example, for this chronic kidney disease, it might be helpful because we know it's very highly inflamed, and our signature predicts autoimmunity and chronic kidney disease as well. So you see, so there might be something fundamental about age acceleration and autoimmunity. But
Interesting.
we're still trying to understand that phenotype.
And is there a way that we can kind of measure our longevity score, if you want, without any fancy gadgets? Are there any easily accessible proxies that we can use to determine how we are doing?
Yes, I think so. I think there's one clock that can use your common biochemical, the blood work that when you go to the doctor, right, and he sends you to do this blood work analysis, and based on what you get, you can somehow insert the values of this of the blood work you just got into an algorithm that can predict your health score. I don't think it can predict longevity, but it can predict your health status. I can't remember the name of the clock, to be honest, but I know, these clocks are not, why aren't they not being used completely? Is that because they're not perfect in predicting health status? So you need to combine with this molecular fancy stuff. But they should give you a glimpse of your overall health, right? So I would encourage people to look, your audience to look to these clocks. It's you can just do a Google search. It's blood work and aging clocks, and you might get something. But maybe you can link we can find it later, and you can link in your. But I can't remember. But I know there's something about that. Yes.
We can definitely add it to the show notes later on.
Right, to the show notes. Yeah.
Given your expertise, what do your personal longevity protocols look like? I mean, what do you do on a daily basis to stay happy, healthy, and productive?
Wow. Okay. So I get really obsessed with science, as you probably can tell. But I need sometimes I need to I need to turn off that very rational side of myself, and I spend a lot of time seated. So I often I do sports 6 times a week. This includes two types of regimens, I would say. So 2 are and here I'm not, this is my personal protocol. It's working well, so I don't want to make it sound like it's a medical advice in any way. But I do twice I do running. One is with peak running, right? You go up to 90% of your capacity for a minute, and then you run you decrease, and then you go up again. So you do it like these peaks
Interval.
of this series. I think there's a name for it for this type.
Interval running?
Yeah, I think it's interval running. Yeah, you're right. So it's kind of 90%, and then you go back to a slower speed, and then you go up again, and I do this once a week for like 30 minutes. The first 15 minutes are just regular running, and then I start when I feel that I'm warmed up. I start this intervention, and the other one I do like 10 kilometers or 15, but I do it in zone 2. So it means that you can go up your 140, although the definitions are a little bit loose. But I try to go slow. You should be able to keep a conversation, and you should be able to run a lot. So I do it for 10 or 15 kilometers. And so this is the other running thing. And this gives me a lot of energy. So it sounds very, exhausting, but it actually makes me feel really good. And the other types, I do like strength exercise. So upper body, I do twice a week, and lower body, I do twice a week. So in the end, you get 6 exercises every week. So it sounds a lot, but if you think about it, it's like working, right? If it's not work, if you the way I see the science is more of a hobby. It's not that boring work. And I see the same for exercise. It's something that I really enjoy. It makes me feel good. So why shouldn't I do it? So this is my regimen, and I also try to eat very clean. I don't eat meats. I mostly do a vegetarian diet, which is actually gives you more energy because you don't have that postprandial, when you eat some. I used to remember when I used to eat a lot of meat, I would get very tired, and so it was kind of counterproductive. So I do mostly vegetarian. Sometimes I do fish because now I'm back in Portugal and we have excellent fish, so I cannot ignore that grilled fish. I try to, I drink alcohol, like red wine, not a lot, but it's also a good strategy for me. Of course, I'm not going to tell anyone to drink alcohol, but it works for me. And I also do a lot of hiking. So this is kind of the exercise, sometimes on the weekends, but I also try to do other activities. For example, literature. I like to read novels. I like to write short novels. I'm still not good at it. I'm still trying to find my own path. But the creative side of writing science is in a way is different from fiction because you're entitled to write whatever you want. The only common thing is that, at least from my writing, is you need to have like a structure narrative. So I like to be structured in what I write, but it's all fiction, right? So you can go whatever you want. And actually, when I was in Berlin, one thing that really helped me to fight off this rational world of science was oil painting. So I did oil painting courses in Berlin. So it's probably the best place in the world to. I know some people don't like Berlin, but for me, Berlin is a magical place because you have all these galleries and courses on oil painting. And I enrolled in one, and it was like a magical thing because you're faced with a different world of colors and textures and things you never thought about. So this helped me to, and I actually think this helped me to stimulate my creativity, because sometimes you hit roadblocks in science, right? Because you're super biased in your own thinking, but then you start thinking with artists and writers and things that completely different from your world, and they bring different perspectives. So I found this very useful to completely go into a different perspective. And painting is like, you don't see the hours go by. It's just, you're really trapped in your own creative world, and you see colors, and let's see if I combine these two paints, what happens, and if I do this and if I do that. and all of a sudden you have an idea to start a painting, and you end up with something very different. And I think this is beautiful, right? Because it really stimulates your imagination, your creativity. So I think this was a big help. So apart from that, I think this. So it's an exercise. It's art and culture that really helps to balance the demanding world of science and meetings and emails and all of the things that people, it's a scary world, right? When you wake up and you have 20 emails and there are 30 emails and you need to answer them all. It's like, oh no. But I think as you age, and I think this is one of the good things as you age, is that things seem to self-organize in a way that if you keep your motivation going, I think things solve by themselves. What I mean by this is that you don't have to stress or become anxious, because from your experience that you were able to solve the problem. So you get more experience, and you know how to face the 20 or 30 emails, and things become very, very easily, because if you don't stress, you can you have time to breathe, and you go at your own pace, and you reply to emails or meetings or whatever, and things seems to work. So this is my my way of viewing things. This self-organization concept that I tell people, and it seems to work, because people they get less anxious, because they say, yeah, you're right. So I was always able to solve my problems, so there's no need to stress, because things somehow they start solving by themselves. Of course, you have to do them, but it's more of an abstract concept if you understand what I'm saying here. So
Yes.
So it's a combination of many things: exercise and culture, and this is what makes me happy. And of course, friends. I didn't talk about friends, but that's obvious, right? We all need our social group to interact and do things and go out for dinner and yeah. So a little bit of this, yeah.
Sounds like
What do
just
you
finding the
do?
right.
What do you do?
What do I do? Well,
Yeah.
I do exercise as well. So I'm a runner too. I used to run a lot the last few years, up to 50K. And then I discovered that it was just, I wasn't really, well, the cardiovascular fitness was there, but there was no strength and no, like I didn't do any high intensity stuff or anything like that. So I was very, very like one-sided. And now I've changed the routines and I've added in more stuff, and I run less. I still love running though. And I used to love painting.
Oh, okay, that's cool.
Haven't done it in a while though. I love literature as well.
Okay, that's cool.
So yeah, kind of just, and I love gardening. I found that.
Gardening. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Gardening and cooking.
I love to eat. I don't know how to cook, but I love to eat. That's for sure. But gardening, actually, people tell me it's very relaxing, and that's you're also getting your own world, and you kind of merge with nature, and it's kind of a ego dissolution thingy, right? It's kind of you're connected with things, or I don't know. Yeah,
absolutely. And I love plants, so that's a good thing. And then you already kind of like go full circle, because you think, well, I love collecting medicinal plants. So it's kind of like, okay, now the plant is going back into the food or whatever, and it's going back into the whole health related things and the science field. So yeah.
Cool. So you keep the circle connected. That's nice.
Yeah. Now you mentioned that you love literature as well. Do you have any favorite books that you want to recommend to our listeners?
Yeah. So that really depends on my emotional states. Sometimes I love the Nordic writers, like Knut Hamsun, and I love the desolation of the Nordic literature. It's John Faust and the novel literature, the guy that won the Nobel for literature this year. So I loved how desolated things are with the Nordic literature. So sometimes I just like to feel more alone, and in it's like, I get really isolated, and I feel the pain of those people. The weather, it's kind of something that plays a role, because I visit Iceland, and I know how the weather looks like, and it gives you a different feeling from the sound of Europe. So it's a way also of experience that again without having to travel. But sometimes I like, for example, I love South American literature, Bolaño and Borges and Julio Cortázar, because the South American literature, it has something that I love, which is sometimes they go really intellectual, and it's about deepening ideas, very deep ideas, but it's also about the very basic things of life, right? So they can describe, like bird dropping. So I'm trying to say some other words, but they can go for the description of something very basic and the feeling that this gives you. And then there's amplitude enough to go to something as a very deep personal thoughts about something, right? So this amplitude, playing with this very different range of feelings about things, I love that, right? Because in the end, we all love the same things, right? It's about jealousy and hate and love and and friendship. So everything that connects us as humans, right? So also I have to mention Dostoevsky, of course. Dostoevsky is the master of psychology, and you really learn about his characters. And so it really depends on my emotional states, but I would say like South American literature and Nordic literature is probably my best. I also love some Germans, for example, Thomas Mann is a mountain, Magic Mountain, and it's the Buddenbrook. I hope I'm not saying. So it's and actually it's a good example. For example, in that novel, you see a guy from aristocracy, a rich guy, but there's one chapter when he's dying that he says, "Why do I need all this money? I'm made of flesh and bones as the poor." As poor people. So in the end, we are all the same. And I love this feeling about literature showing the world that in the end we share all the basic stuff, right? The human emotions and aging. Aging actually is an interesting topic, because you see how people face aging and how sometimes the mind is sharp, but the bodies are not answering right. So there's this Japanese writer, Tanizaki. He has a really nice novel about the decaying of the body and the mind being, and the psychological stress that this gives someone, right? Because you're aging, your body is decaying, but you feel fit. Your head is great. So how do you deal with that? So in a way, maybe literature is helping me to this, later in life events with family and friends and myself. So it's showing me something that you don't think about when you're young. You don't think about memory and childhood memories, right? And I think literature somehow it brings everything that is interesting together, right? Childhood memories and aging and emotions and all the stuff. And of course, just to wrap up, I have to mention James Joyce. It's kind of, people sometimes hate James Joyce. People sometimes love James Joyce. I love James Joyce. I'm in that side. The short novels are very realistic and shows how he can master human relationships and trauma and things like that. But then he goes, for example, to Ulysses, where he completely shows a different language. Every chapter is an adventure. You're lost many of the times. You have no idea what he's talking about, but it's rewarding because you want to read it again and you want to understand. Some chapters are written in as a journalistic press releases, some other very ancient English to the modern English, and then you have, it's crazy, and then you have this stream of consciousness, no punctuation, just someone talking for 50 pages nonstop, right? So it's crazy, but it's very exciting because you find something that's with other books you don't find, and it's a new way of looking at things. And I think he completely reshaped literature with Ulysses. So I encourage everyone. It's like climbing a mountain. You will fall a lot of times, but when you get to the top, it's like, yes, I finished Ulysses. It's amazing, right? It's a long journey, but I think it's one of those books that always teach you something. So I tried to read it twice. I failed. I read it the first time last year, and I plan to read every year one more time. So it's like I don't know. It's like a companion. I want to keep Ulysses every time close so that I can revisit. It's great. I encourage everyone.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing. And I mean, I'm not sure. I can't tell if you're more passionate about literature or research.
Yes, it's difficult, right? It's difficult. I sometimes I say it that when I get 50, I will drop science and I'll try to become a novel, a writer. But I will have to start from scratch, and it's a tough world. It's a tough world, and I'm not sure I'm good enough. So let's see how things. But it's definitely a passion. Yeah, you're right. Right.
I'll keep my fingers crossed for you.
Yeah, thank you.
So where can our listeners find you online if they would like to learn more about you or read your writing or connect with you?
Yeah, so the writing is not published yet because, as I said, and just I'll make it short, because I think I haven't found my voice yet. So, I don't want to share something that I'm not sure it's my voice and may affect future writing. So I'm keeping it in the dark for now. So they can find unless they contact me, I might be able to share, but this is something I'm not doing currently. But they can find me on Twitter. We can share in the show notes, and I'm also in LinkedIn. This is the most professional side of myself. Instagram is more of a familiar friends thingy. I don't use it for professional, it's not for professional usage, but for LinkedIn, it's José Pedro Castro. It's my name. It should be easy. And in Twitter or X now, it's JP Castro Aging. So that's my name. And, I'll be happy to engage with anyone who wants to have a good conversation. So that's it.
Fantastic. Again, thank you so much for talking and for sharing all those tips and insights with us today. This was great.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Nice conversation. I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Take care and talk soon. Bye.
Yeah. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for listening to the Wired for Success podcast. I hope you've enjoyed today's episode. If you did, please subscribe, rate, and leave a review. That's a fantastic, easy, and zero-cost way to help the show grow. Just use the link in the show notes and make my day. Want more? For quick, actionable tips and insights to guided meditations and a side of biohacking, join my inner circle and get access to exclusive subscriber-only content. Again, just use the link in the show notes to join the tribe. Thank you for your support and see you on the other side. Take care and talk soon. Bye.